The Police Construction Safety Mission Statement. The police safety program is based on 100% employee involvement and driven from all levels. The mission of Police Construction Management Team, with respect to health, safety, and the environment, is the prevention of injury, illness, environmental impact, and property damage during all construction activities at the job site. Safety is recognized as important by everyone here at Police Construction, from senior management through project management, supervisors, foremen, partners, and subcontractors. With your commitment, we will be able to meet our goal of 0 injuries. General safety rules for our job sites. No cell phone use while operating equipment, driving vehicles, or working around hazardous construction activities. Smoking is only allowed in designated areas and not anywhere close to a location where gas or fuel is stored. Only company vehicles are allowed in work areas. All personal vehicles must park in designated areas only. DOT drivers must adhere to all state and federal motor carrier laws. Seatbelts are mandatory in all company vehicles and equipment at all times. No headphones or any kind of audio equipment that will prevent you from hearing potential hazards. Hearing protection provided for you is not included in this. No employees are to be transported in the back of company trucks. To be in a vehicle, each person must have a seat and a seat belt. No firearms or weapons to be present on the job sites. This includes firearms or weapons in your personal vehicle if it is parked on the job site. Accident and incident reporting procedures. Regardless of how minor the injury appears to be, all injuries must be reported to your supervisor immediately. We do this to ensure you receive the necessary medical treatment to prevent minor issues from becoming major. Equipment and auto damage must also be reported to your supervisor immediately. All incidents, accidents, injuries, and near misses must be reported to Police Project Management Team immediately, no matter how minor it may be. All site trailers are equipped with first aid supplies. Project managers, engineers, and superintendents are trained and certified to provide first aid. For any and all serious injuries, call 911 immediately and send spotters to lead emergency responders to your area. Personal protective equipment. Hard hats must be worn 100% of the time. The only exception to this is while you are inside the enclosed cab of an equipment piece or inside a vehicle. Noise exposure over 85 dBA requires hearing protection. This is the level above which extended exposure will permanently damage your hearing. Most of the tools and equipment present on the sites operate at a volume over 85 dBA. So hearing protection is recommended when working with or around equipment and machinery. Safety glasses must be worn at all times when a hazard is present. Many people end up with objects in their eye simply by being near tools being used, even if they aren't using the tools themselves. All eyewear must be Z87 approved. This includes prescription glasses. Z87 is the minimum protective standard required by OSHA. Side shields must be used with prescription glasses. In place of this, you must wear over the glasses. If cutting or grinding, safety glasses must be used in addition to safety face shield or a similar layer of protection. Footwear must be an over-the-ankle leather work boot. We also require our employees to wear long pants and a shirt with a sleeve of at least 4 inches. Gloves are to be worn when handling material. It is important to select the proper glove for the job being performed. Vinyl or rubber gloves are required for working with any hazardous chemical or chemically treated material. Safety vests. Class 2 reflective vests are required during daylight hours on our job sites. Class 3 reflective vests are required during twilight or darkness hours on our job site. Fire extinguisher safety. While performing hot work, a fire extinguisher must be readily accessible. Please note some jobs may require hot work permits. Inspect fire extinguisher before each use. All our fire extinguishers are ABC type extinguishers and so are useful for a variety of fires. This is so you are able to use any extinguisher accessible rather than having to search for the right type. Verify the extinguisher has been inspected annually and for the current month with the documentation on the tag. If the fire is too large to handle yourself, sound the alarm and evacuate the area immediately. Power tool requirements. Inspect all tools generators monthly and prior to each use. Tag out damaged and faulty electrical equipment and remove it from service immediately. Only use GFCI protected electrical sources on construction sites, or follow your company's assured grounding program. Tools without a grounding plug must be double insulated. The image of a square inside another square is the symbol used to represent double insulation. Many times you will not find double insulation written on a tool, only this symbol. Ladder safety. Ladders must be inspected before use daily. Do not use extension or step ladders if weakened, broken, or otherwise defective parts. Tag it out of service and remove from site. Check weight limitations of the ladder prior to use. Keep shoes free of mud and grease. Never hand carry materials or tools up a ladder. Use a tag line to hoist them up. On equipment, place items on step or fender above the ladder, then climb up. You must be able to maintain 3 points of contact at all times, including ladders on equipment. Only one person at a time may work from a single ladder unless designed otherwise. Working over 6 feet from a ladder, fall protection is required. Wood job-built ladders need to have documented inspections daily. Step ladders should be fully open and the cross braces locked in place. Step ladders shall not be used when leaned up against an object. The ladder must be completely opened up. Keep area around base of ladder free of clutter and materials. Do not stand on top or next to top rung, typically designated on ladder. Do not walk ladders, climb down, and move them to their new position. Walking ladders can warp the frame and reduce the structural integrity and the weight capacity of the ladder. Set up extension ladders at a 4-to-1 rise to run angle. If the wall is 16 feet high, the bottom of the ladder needs to be 4 feet out from the base of the wall. Secure ladders at the top and bottom. If the ladder is in a trench, bracing the base of the ladder against the other wall of the trench is acceptable as securing it. Top of the ladder should extend a minimum of 3 feet above the ladder's landing. Fall protection safety. Falls are the leading cause of fatalities in the construction industry. Cover or guard openings greater than 2 inches. Floor hole covers must be able to support 2 times the intended weight, secured and marked with either hole or cover. Any employee exposed to a fall greater than 6 feet must be protected by one of the following: guardrail systems, personal fall arrest, restraint systems, safety nets. Preventing back injuries. Back injuries are one of the leading injuries in the construction industry, and most of them are easily preventable by using the proper planning and technique. It's important to remember to never lift items that are too heavy or too awkward. Always get help and have a plan before you lift. The proper positioning and technique that will save your back from injury is as follows. Keep your knees bent and your back straight, and keep the load close and do not twist. Rigging inspection. Only use properly rated rigging equipment. In the case of chains, only grade 80 and grade 100 are to be used for lifting. Anything less is a transport chain, useful only for tying things down, not for lifting. Inspect all rigging prior to use for damage and wear. Look for cracked, stretched, or bent links on the chains. Ensure manufacturer's tag is still in place. If rigging equipment is damaged or faulty, or if manufacturer's tag is gone, remove from service immediately. In the case of synthetic or nylon slings, please look for acid or caustic burns, melting or charring of any parts, snags, punctures, tears, or cuts, broken or worn stitches, and distortion of fittings. If any of these are present, remove the sling from service. When using slings, protect from sharp edges of the load by placing pads over the sharp edges. Do not place your hands between the sling and its load when the sling is being tightened around the load. Ensure that the sling is appropriately rated for weight of the load. When rigging with the synthetic sling, always put the tag towards the hook so tag can still be read. Hazard communication. Any and all chemicals brought onto our job sites must be labeled, inventoried, and SDSs given to project management team prior to being brought on site. It is your right to understand what chemical materials you are working with. You should know the location of the Safety Data Sheets book and the written HAZCOM program. All of the job site trailers contain SDS books and the information for 3E Company, the third-party SDS provider. Information and training shall be received any time a new hazardous chemical is introduced into your work area. Always check containers for labels, and remember that secondary containers must be labeled with the chemical name and hazards. June 1 of 2015 new HAZCOM GHS standards require all containers to have new labels and SDS sheets. Spill prevention. All spills over 1 gallon must be reported immediately to police project management team. Liquid waste such as chemicals, fuels, or lubricants shall be collected and disposed of properly off-site. In case of small spills, material shall be collected in leak-proof containers for salvage or disposal off-site properly. In the event of a spill or release of hazardous materials in excess of reportable quantities, notification shall be made immediately to corporate and the authorities having jurisdiction over the project site. Welding awareness. Due to their toxic effects, both manganese and hexavalent chromium in welding fumes have been the subject of increased attention. Welding ordinary carbon steel with most common welding processes releases manganese into the shop air. Overexposure to manganese has been shown to cause damage to the brain and cause a long list of ailments. OSHA has recently adopted a new permissible exposure limit for hexavalent chromium. Source capture or local exhaust ventilations is likely the most effective at reducing welder exposure than dilution ventilation. Machine guarding. Do not remove guarding unless lockout tagout has been performed. All guards must remain in place during the operation of machinery. Inspect all guarding before operating machinery. All damaged guarding must be replaced. Machinery or equipment cannot be operated if guards or other safety devices are broken or missing. If this is the case, the machinery or equipment is required to be tagged out until the device or guard is fixed and returned. Lockout-tagout procedures are used to prevent the release of hazardous energy or to prevent hazardous energy from escaping. A padlock is placed on the appropriate energy isolating device that is in the off or closed position. Lockout-tagout addresses the fatal five main causes in workplace injuries. These are failure to stop equipment, failure to disconnect from power source, failure to dissipate residual energy, accidental restarting of equipment, and failure to clear work areas before restarting. Never loan or share your lock or key with anyone else. Always be sure all lockout-tagout devices are compatible with the environment in which they will be used. For example, do not use a paper tag somewhere where it will be exposed to the weather. Confined space entry. A confined space is defined as limited access and egress, large enough for a person to work in, and not designed for continuous human occupancy. Some examples of confined space are tanks, vaults, manholes, and pits. A confined space is considered permit required if any of the following are true. It contains or has a potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere. It contains a material that has the potential for engulfing an entrant. Has an internal configuration such that an entrant could be trapped or asphyxiated by inwardly converging walls or by a floor which slopes downward and tapers to a smaller cross-section, or it contains any other recognized serious safety or health hazards. Scaffold safety. Scaffolds must be inspected and tagged daily by a competent person. Green indicates the all clear. Yellow indicates that hazards are present. Recognize those hazards and proceed with caution. And red means no entry. Training on scaffold safety will advise you on how to protect yourself from electrical hazards, fall hazards, and falling object hazards. Never change scaffold configuration. Employees must be protected from falling hand tools, debris, other small objects. Protection is gained through the installation of toe boards, screens, guardrail systems, debris nets, catch platforms, canopy platforms, canopy structures that contain or deflect the falling objects, and roping off, blocking off areas underneath scaffolding. This represents an example of why a scaffold might have red tape. Heavy equipment safety. All heavy equipment has the right of way on our projects. Be aware of traffic patterns before entering or parking on any of our projects. Never operate equipment without proper training. Seatbelts must be worn at all times. Maintain eye contact with all workers on the ground. Complete daily equipment inspection. Check backup alarms, glass, mirrors, guards, and notify the supervisor of any defects needing repair. Maintain 3 points of contact on ladders while entering and exiting equipment. No riders on equipment. There are no exceptions. All employees who operate forklifts will have completed training by an authorized instructor. This training must be updated every 3 years. Crane safety. Cranes are very important and very dangerous. Be aware of all working cranes on the projects. Crane operator needs to have current certification. There must be a qualified rigger and a qualified signal person while crane is in operation. Cranes shall be inspected prior to every shift and also on a monthly and yearly basis. Annual inspections are to be completed by a qualified person or when modified and or repaired and adjusted. Critical lift guidelines. A critical lift is defined as one of the following: when a man basket is used, when using 2 cranes for a lift, when weight exceeds 75% of load chart, when damage that could result in serious economic consequences or delay in schedule. A critical lift permit must be filled out and submitted to the police project manager or police construction manager for approval prior to any critical lifts taking place on our projects. The manager who designates a lift as a critical lift shall be or shall appoint a lift supervisor to create and oversee all aspects of the lift plan. When working around power lines, this chart shows the minimum distance you must stay from power lines. If you are unsure of what the voltage is, call the power company to verify. Always use a spotter when working around power lines. Post signs marking overhead power. Trench safety. One of the serious exposures to injury is working in trenches. Prior to digging, ensure that all utilities are properly marked and located. This includes blue stake confirmation and potholing of utilities. Pothole utilities by hand or vacuum truck. It is not considered potholing if you use a backhoe or a track hoe. Trenches will be inspected by the competent person daily, prior to work and when conditions change. Means of access egress is required when trench depth is 4 foot or greater. Employees shall not work more than 25 feet from the access egress point. This means an access point or ladder is required every 50 feet. Trenches greater than 5 feet in depth must be protected with one of the following protective systems: sloping, benching, shoring, shielding. Different grades of soil require different amounts of sloping. The competent person will carry out testing to determine the soil type. Type A soils are to be sloped 3/4 to 1. Type B soils are to be sloped 1 to 1. Type C soils are to be sloped 1.5 to 1. And only Type A and Type B soils are permitted to be benched. Spoil piles should be at least 2 feet back from the edge of the trench. This 2-foot distance back from the edge applies to generators and tools as well. Understanding blue stake colors. Before we dig, we first have to identify our underground utilities. The table shown shows the different utilities that could be present at job sites and the color code used to identify them. All stakes must be updated every 15 days. Job safety analysis or job hazard analysis are required on all police projects. JSAs or JHAs are an important part of our safety program and help in identifying hazards in the work area and the controls needed to complete our job safely. Hazard analysis is done prior to beginning work. Dust control is very important on all police projects. Please check with your local environmental office for local regulations and requirements. In Arizona, the following apply. A certified dust control coordinator is required on all projects. Water pool and water truck operators must have completed the basic dust control training. Track out equal to or greater than a cumulative 25 feet. Please clean up immediately. If you notice any visible dust, stop work and call for a water truck. And anyone who performs work in an area is subject to Rule 310 dust control permit. Obtain and display a subcontractor registration number and follow the requirements of each project's dust control permit and dust control plan. Traffic control. It is everyone's responsibility to follow all traffic control measures on our job sites. Obey all traffic signs in the work zone. Drive the speed posted. Know where to enter and know the exit lane closures. Always give the right of way to public traffic. When entering a roadway with public traffic, make sure there is a large gap enough to allow speed and flow with the traffic. If you notice traffic control devices or barricades that are knocked down, please notify project supervision immediately. When working behind concrete barriers, do not sit, lean, or stand next to them. Do not park personal vehicles in a work zone. Use strobes and beacons when entering or exiting work zone. And barricades and signs are there to protect you. Do not move or alter barricades and signs.